There's no sound because I turned mute on in case I was talking to tech support. But thank you for reminding me. So I'm not sure what happened there. I think my internet blipped and then my OBS software kind of lost its mind. So when I noticed I was in the middle of painting the eyes, well, near the end of painting the eyes, I don't know where it was for you guys. I'm just refining them a little bit. This is the kind of thing that I would spend a lot more time on if I weren't painting on stream, but I don't want to like bore you guys too much. But I also don't want him to look too crazy-eyed. I mean, I guess, you know, he could be crazy-eyed. Some of us are crazy-eyed. I'm going to try to use the light color for the beak. Maybe that's too light. Since my sample great horned owl has kind of a gray beak. This mini is one of 3 Halloween familiars, and actually this is a good time to stop and talk about the stuff you can only get for the next few days. So, in case anyone else joined us midstream. So there's this one, this little cat, and these bats, and they're all in the style of the, let's put the bats in the middle, in the style of the Bonsylvanian figures. Which, if you're not familiar with those, I'm going to show you some of those. So some of these are currently available in Bones Plastic, then you can buy them anytime. But this figure, those Halloween familiars, and a few others are, they were never released in Bones, and they aren't available normally in metal, but Reaper has made them available for the month of October. So if you're interested in the painting of this one, I did that on stream last week, and that should be on the VOD, and eventually on YouTube, I'm sure. And also, if you go to the website, up at the top, I have an article with pictures comparing the before and after of, well, not before and after. The figure I painted in 2015, these originally released in 2014 and 2015, and I ended up being the person who had painted most of them. So I redid this one because the colors that I used to paint it weren't available. So on my blog, I've also been sharing the colors that I used to paint all the figures, and I will briefly switch to the images and run through. So that's the original one from 2015. That's the one I painted last week. That's the back of the 2015. The one I painted last week. There's a comparison between the two, and you can see these pictures on my blog with some more analysis of the differences. And that kind of is part of the analysis, is some areas are darker and lighter and some areas are different colors. I'm going to skip through. These are the colors I use, but that's on the blog too if you want to know that. That's how I figured out the colors, also on the blog. Okay, so if you spend $20 or more on the Reaper site, you will get one of these, which is the, I think it's called Graveyard Entryway. If you want to paint it and put your figure on it and take some pictures, you can share those with hashtag Reaptober, and I believe those will get shared on Reaper social media. Don't look at him. Well, okay, he's a pumpkin-headed blood bear, and I think you can buy him. There was another promotion, but it was while supplies last, and supplies have not lasted. This is another one of the Bonsylvanians that's available. I think his name is Howie. They send them to me before they pick names, so I often don't know the names of the guys. And he has a little fish friend there. I wanted to get his fish friend's face. This is Jake. So these guys that I'm showing you now are only available until like midnight, October 31, I believe. Probably Texas midnight, which is Central Time. And then this is Maddie the Medusa. Who brings her own friends everywhere she goes. And then this is Mary the Mermaid. And if you, on that same blog post where I'm comparing the different versions of Betty the Ghost Bride, I did a digital edit of this one with some things that I would have done a little differently if I painted her today. So it's not as different as the Ghost Bride because there were reasons that I painted the Ghost Bride with a little less contrast in 2015. But there are still some differences. So this is Elsa, originally from Valentine's 2015, actually not Halloween 2015. And this is Boris. And what's super adorable about them is that you can pose them together and it'll look like they're holding hands. And you can even do that kind of, you can change the angle slightly too if you'd rather have them looking directly at each other. So that's all of the, there are a couple other figures that I didn't paint, so I only had pictures up of the ones that I painted, which maybe I should have grabbed the other pictures too. But I have high quality pictures of my painting. I don't want to make other painters look bad by not having great resolution pictures of their stuff. If he paints it as Jake, he sells insurance. And Quindy has painted Elsa last week and is working on Boris right now and loves them so much. Yeah, they're super fun. I had fun with them. Do I have the... I don't think I even have them not in... So I have some of them in metal. They are metal. They're not plastic. If you go back and watch my stream from the beginning of the month, when I started working on Mary, I started by showing how you prepare metal. So if you haven't painted metal figures before, these are all one-piece figures. All you need is a little bit of something called primer. So when you also order brush-on primer. It comes in black, white, or gray. I was talking about that earlier with the painting the little familiars. And you apply a coat of that over it before you paint. So that's the main difference. I mean, obviously they're heavier and they cost a little more. Stuff like that. But in terms of painting, the main difference between painting a metal figure versus painting a plastic figure is that you do need to have primer. If you paint Finished Mary just the other day. Yeah, it was kind of interesting going back and painting something again and comparing it to something I'd painted previously. It was partly interesting because I'd been kind of feeling lately like I hadn't been making much progress in my personal painting goals, and some things weren't looking as different as they should. So it was interesting to discover that even not meaning to, I painted a lot more contrast on Betty the Bride than I would have painted probably in 2015, even if she were not a ghost. Because I wasn't kind of thinking about that when we were on stream last week. Because it's already pretty challenging to paint and talk to you guys at the same time and share tips and stuff. It definitely makes it a little harder to stop and make more deliberate decisions, which is one reason. So when I'm painting and I'm in the groove and I've picked out my colors, I know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of doing the work part of the painting. I like to listen to audiobooks or have like a show that I like running in the background or something like that. If I'm working on a new task, if I'm trying to, learn a new kind of blending, or I'm picking out colors, or, I'm practicing some kind of texture strokes that I haven't really done before, I like to not have stuff happening so that I can make sure to concentrate, because I don't want to go into automatic pilot in that scenario. I want to make sure that I'm staying focused and on task. So that can often happen when if you're used to painting with the TV on or whatever, and you're trying to follow someone's tutorial or something, and you finish, and then what you painted just looks like everything else you ever painted. It's probably because you just went into automatic pilot. It's really hard to not go into automatic pilot, so you have to spend some effort to consciously think about things. At least for me. A lot of you are probably younger and have more agile brains, so maybe you can do that, but that has been my experience. Watching other people learn art sometimes too, because I also study traditional art now, and going out to workshops and stuff like that. They have those just like miniature painting people do, and you'll see people at workshops, and I'll see this when I teach classes, where people will just kind of, assume the next step. They'll rush ahead. They'll almost be keeping up with or ahead of what the instructor is doing because they figure they know what the next part is. And it's like, in my experience, if you're there to learn from someone else, you want to stop and follow along and do what they're telling you to do or what they're describing as their process, because that's how they're doing stuff different than you. So that's your opportunity to try to figure that out and to learn how to do that. And it doesn't mean that your process is bad. You're probably going to end up not completely changing what you do, just incorporating some of what you learn into what you do. But to understand theirs, you have to stop doing yours for a minute and slow down. So now when I teach classes, I often don't give people certain supplies until the time has come for that part, because they'll race ahead and get into trouble because they do it a little differently than I might have intended. So now that I have more, color pretty much on all of the figure, I'm kind of assessing whether everything looks, whether the contrast is good or there's any little things that need tweaking. And I was feeling like some of the highlights on the pumpkin needed a little tweak. So I'm just trying to bump those a bit. And this is a very important stage for me. More and more, this is an important part of the process for me, is taking a minute and reviewing and seeing if everything really does work together. After all. I mean, I'm not going to make you endure the whole process on stream, but I just figure it's worth mentioning a little bit about it. So that guy is actually pretty much done. I don't know if I might try to get some super bright yellow and pop his eyes a little more, but I'm going to call it good as it is. So the torchlight is the brightest one I have, I think. I didn't think I picked up lemon yellow. I think I picked this one up by accident because I'd actually picked out a completely different yellow. I remember doing it. So that's funny. Julia Trent says, I took some dollhouse miniature classes this past weekend and several times saw experienced makers only somewhat listening to the teacher as they had been doing dollhouses so many years. I also saw those same people miss some advice or steps that they then had to backtrack or ask the teacher the same question she had just answered. Yeah, that's been my experience when I was in some paint classes. There was one where there weren't very many of us. So there was me, and I've done art, but I hadn't done a lot of oil painting. I think that was only like my second or third oil painting. There was a guy who had done painting like 20 years ago and was just coming back to it. There was a woman that had studied with the instructor extensively, so she was pretty good on her own. And then there was another woman that was clearly a very skilled artist and had like a great style and stuff. But if she was there to learn how the instructor was painting, she wasn't doing that because she just kind of went off and did her thing, which was a very different process than what the instructor did. So I don't think she got as much out of it as she would have if she'd, slowed down and followed his steps. Which again, doesn't mean that's how you should paint the whole rest of your life. Just, you can't really grasp what's happening if you don't do that. So I'm going to dry brush the gravestone a little bit. Although I probably should have worked on the tree some. But speaking of dry brushing, so next week I think I'm probably going to go back to my dry brush test thing. If you haven't watched previously, I've done 2 rounds of testing a bunch of different brushes, makeup brushes, brushes that are purpose made for dry brushing, the typical flats that we use. This is actually a makeup brush, but it's kind of like a flat. And I've tested them on the kind of things you typically don't want to dry brush or don't get successful results. Hi, Crick and Flagger. Yes, these are familiars from the Reaper Familiar Halloween pack that's on sale right now. So I started with like robes with, rolling folds, the kind of things that it's really hard to get a nice smooth transition with dry brushing. And next week, I don't know why I decided to do this in reverse order, but there you go. I'm going to be using rocks and or wood that are more typical textures that you would use dry brushing on. And we may find that some of the brushes that weren't great for, on the smoother materials work better on these materials. I'm actually very much expecting that we will find different brushes perform differently in this test than they did in the previous ones. I haven't got the blog post up yet, so I'm taking pictures and writing down my thoughts and stuff as I do these experiments. But I was the first stream where I painted the guy with the blue cloak. If you were there, well, teal. There were some technical problems, and the stream is broken into 3 parts if you try to watch it on Twitch, which is kind of not optimal. So I was sort of waiting for Justin to put it up on YouTube so I can add the links to the post before I post that first one. But if you are interested, you can catch up on Twitch right now without waiting for that. But I'm going to go back to that. And I have, there's some other things about dry brushing I'm exploring. I'm not going to make the whole thing about dry brushing, but I know everybody likes to paint in different ways, and lots of people want to paint quickly for game purposes. So I'm curious about, how far can we push dry brushing is part of what my experiment is about. Kareth asks, what is Bones Black? I thought all bone stuff is white. So there are actually 3 different lines of plastic miniatures from Reaper now. One of them is called Bones Black. It's actually a gray material. I do not have any with me, I don't think. So this was the original Bones. This is classic Bones. It came out, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. Probably longer than that now. It's a little bendy. It's super durable, though. You can abuse these miniatures. People have driven cars over them. They're super durable. Bones Black is a little stiffer. So this one doesn't actually have it. Let's see. I think I have a painted version of that guy, too. So you can see that his sword kind of goes a little off. They were testing. That was during testing to see how durable they are. With the Bones Black material, it's a little stiffer of a plastic. So the weapons are usually straighter. The detail's a little crisper. But it is slightly more brittle. And I just mean slightly. Like maybe you can't drive a car over it, but you can still, do this kind of thing and throw it in your backpack and whatever, and it's fine. Bones USA is another type of plastic. This figure is a Bones USA figure, and this is the native color of it. I haven't primed it. I've painted the face, but I haven't done anything else to it. I think the Bones Black is slightly darker gray than this. And this, again, is another step up in terms of the level of detail that it can hold and how straight you can have parts like thinner weapons. But it is a little bit more brittle. I mean, it's not like, this guy's still plenty sturdy. It's just in terms of if you had this sword on a Bones USA one, like I can go back and forth like this for a long time before I'm going to cause any stress fractures or whatever in this original Bones plastic. You're just going to get there sooner doing something like that with Bones Black or Bones USA. So those are the 3 different lines, and I believe if you look at figures on the web store, they're all clearly indicated which material it is. And if you have blister packs like this, there's this one says Bones, so this is original recipe, and it would say Bones Black or Bones USA if it was from those lines. I think. Now, to be fair, this is a Bones USA figure, but it's a special edition. So it's kind of, they have this sort of, if it doesn't fit something else, they put it in this blister back, I think. So hopefully that answers your questions about what the 3 different Bones lines are. If it doesn't, let me know and I will try to be clearer. when bones first came out, to help people see how durable they were, I went to a convention or two with Reaper, and we would throw them on the floor and tell people to stomp on them. And very few people were super reluctant to do it. But I had a couple of kobolds, and they were little, and they had just like very small, where the ankles attached to the base was very narrow. And by the end of PAX Prime, I think one of them did break off the base after all the stomping. And I think another one actually, it looked like friction damage. I had a knoll that kind of had a thing that almost looked like it was melted, so I think it was friction damage from, somebody's soul scrubbing across the floor. But they're very hardy. I keep my unpainted ones just in a bin in the closet, or plastic bags. I do protect painted ones a little more because while acrylic paint is fairly flexible, I don't have my paint skin here, but I thought I had one somewhere. Nope, I don't have my paint skin here. I should keep that nearby when we're doing the stream. But you can bend an acrylic paint skin, but it's not as flexible and durable as those plastics. And it can scratch off if you have like these little, if these were bones, the little sharp wing edges, and I threw a bunch of painted guys in a plastic bag, it might scrape off some of the paint. So for transporting painted ones, I just recommend that you do it in a way where they can't smash into each other. So all you need is something like a couple of layers of bubble wrap or something, or even tissue, where you just have them in between so they're held in place and not knocking into each other is all you need to do to preserve the paint. Well, to be fair, I am talking about ones that are painted with Reaper paints. I haven't tested the durability of non-Reaper paints. I have heard some people say that some other brands of paint aren't as durable. I mean, I've heard that Vallejo model color in general isn't as durable. It was developed for display type miniatures that people didn't play with, so it is a different paint base, I think. Free Range Miniatures says, I love my Reaper models. However, I have had a lot of bad luck with my cave spider legs breaking off. Little green stuff and glue did the trick. Were they breaking off where it was glued, or actually the plastic breaking off? Because that's interesting. But I don't know if the cave spider is one of the more, like, slightly less bendy plastics. So I was just trying to add a little bit to the, give the gravestone a little more texture. I also want to bring out those cracks just a little more. So I'm going to come into the crevices with a darker color. That, of course, being my old favorite, blue liner. Michael Proctor and I may paint in almost completely different ways apart from the chronic dependence on blue liner. Hopefully that's bringing out some more of the texture. I apologize to anyone who is going to be annoyed by the sound, but I'm going to have to take a cough drop. Well, now that I'm thinking about it, I also want to put blue liner to line where the tree meets the gravestone. Hey, Ro. Thank you for joining us. Just working on some of the Halloween familiars. Sadly, the poor little cat has been ignored. Maybe I should work on the cat for a bit. But I'm pretty much through. I mean, I might go back and fiddle with a few things. I probably wouldn't. I think I should put it on some kind of rocker base or something. But I'm pretty much done with the owl. I've been making some progress here with the bats. I'm going to switch to the cat for just a minute. I'm going to paint that as more of a blue-black, I think. I mean, this was a little... It's a bluey gray. You can see... I'm not trying to hide my palette. It just doesn't always focus well if I put the palette in. So these are the colors I've been using on the gravestone and the bat. I'm going to stick with that snow shadow, but use twilight blue. And then just mix that with blue liner, I think. I have midnight, but I didn't bring it over. So this is a great triad I like if you want to kind of do a blue-black. So midnight, that's 2019, or 9019. Then twilight, and then snow shadow. And for those who weren't here earlier, shake your paints more than you're seeing me do it. I shake mine before the stream starts, so you don't have to listen to it. Because I use a mechanical shaker thing. A Vortex Mixer, I think, is the official name for that. I bought one off eBay that was like a repurposed lab one. There are companies selling versions of them now. I don't have any experience with those to be able to recommend a brand, though. But if you have like an insane number of paints like I do, or you have wrist and hand problems like I do, it was expensive, especially because like it's super heavy. So then if you add on the shipping, but I've never regretted that purchase. Especially right now, I'm working on paint maintenance. I wonder if I can reach it from here. Give me just a sec. And I'm also making modern art. So I've been getting all the gunk out of the tops of my dropper bottles and stuff. And then adding my little swatch things at the same time. And if you aren't a regular viewer and you, I'm not sure what I'm talking about with swatches. I sadly don't know what episode numbers they are now, but if you go back and watch some of the previous episodes, I did 2 where I talk about swatches, which you can do on paper. There's a variety of different ways to do swatches. But they're useful because, you know, if you look at the color in the bottle, even though, you know, it's a clear plastic bottle, it does kind of mute the color a little. It's a little more vivid if you look at it directly as paint. Also, looking at as paint will tell you the finish. So you might have paints that are a little bit shinier. I sent mental minis. And there, you might have applications where you want to paint leather and using a shinier paint would be great, but then you want to paint something else and you don't want shiny. So it's useful to be able to tell if you can just look right at your swatches. I've also done it in such a way, well, this particular label isn't as good as this label. I'm showing it because it's got like some kind of number under there. So I can paint like a heavy swatch, but then I also do just a swipe with the paint, the strength out of the bottle. And that shows me like transparency. So you can see that these two, this is like semi-transparent, that one's pretty transparent, and this one's not transparent at all. And then I thin them down a little with medium, in this case brush on sealer, so that I can see what you call the undertone. And that becomes important for when you have, let's work it. So if you were looking at these two paints in the bottle, or even just with swatches straight out of the bottle, they look pretty similar. If I add a little, if I thin them down a little, or add white is the other way to do this, you can see that these two paints are really not that similar at all. This one has a lot more blue. So if I started mixing this with things, it would react differently than if I started mixing this, or if I did a glaze. Each of these would have, or a wash, thin down paint application. Each of these would apply differently, despite basically looking the same when you just look at them in the bottle, or even if you dispensed a drop and looked at it. So I'm finding it very handy to have those swatches. I'm trying to go through all of my paints, which is an excessive number of paints. I want to say 700 or 800. And do that. And then, but the interesting thing is, so I'm organizing my shelves so that the swatches are sticking out, but then I can't see the names of the paints. So it's kind of annoying when I know the name of the paint that I'm looking for, instead of I'm looking for a color that I like. So no solution is perfect, I guess, is what I'm getting at with that one. Since the parts of this cat are sculpted to be quite furry, the tail, and then there's a ridge of fur up the back, and then the flanks and the face are sculpted a little more smoothly. So I'm going to go ahead and do the time savings, a little dry brushing on the furry parts. Do I keep a paint list book for matching new minis to old? Asks Elijah Stephen. Elijah 7, apologies for that. I don't keep a book, I use little index cards. I don't think I have one handy. So it's a card like this, but I just write down the colors that I used on stuff. This is often these days, that's less for my own benefit than other people's, because I know I paint a lot of things that end up on web stores, and I know sometimes you see a studio paint job and you want to paint something like that, or you like that one color and you want to know how someone made that one color. So I like to, since it doesn't cost me much effort or trouble to share that with people, I go ahead and share it. I'm rarely matching armies. It's more occasionally I might be like, oh, well, I like how that color hair turned out. How did I do that? Then I might go back and look at it. But because color is relative, that sometimes won't work. Like I might use a gold recipe on one figure, and then if I take that same exact recipe and put it on another figure that has a very different color scheme, it's not going to look the same, because the colors that are around something affect your perception of the color. So recipes are useful, but it's also useful to look at things in context, and or at least to not be upset if you have something that works 80% of the time, and you have a miniature and you do your gold NMM or whatever, and it doesn't look great. It's probably because the difference is in the other colors, and it's not that you screwed up or that recipe is terrible or whatever. It's just that's how color works. I was seeing a little tiny glint of metal shine on the tail. So there's a place I've had rub off, and what I would normally do is get out some brush on primer and fix that. But since I think we're nearing the end of the stream, I'm just going to proceed and fix it later. Now I will work on some of the body. And the trick of black really is making sure you keep a lot of black in it. Black is the mid color and the shadow. So typically the advice is that 50% of a thing should show the mid color, the mid tone. And I mean, there's times when that doesn't happen and surfaces where that's not the answer, but just as a general kind of guideline. So with black, you need like 75 or 80% of the thing to look black, or it's going to start looking like dark gray, or in this case, it would start looking like dark blue because I'm using blues. So I would probably find, like when I'm painting in the real world, not on stream, when I can actually see and stuff, that I end up going back over things, tightening the highlights down to smaller and smaller areas to make sure that it reads as black as possible. So it's like I kind of do this step and then I go back down all my steps, tightening things up. Tiny wee kitten. Yes. Although compared to like actual gaming scale kittens, so where did I put my old lady? This is from one of the Reaper Familiar packs, I think, this cat. Although if you want a really good selection of cats, get Edna the cat lady, and I think she's got like 5 or 7 cats that come with her. So that's the scale of a familiar size cat to a Halloween familiar size cat, because this cat is meant to go with the Bolzobanian style figures. So that's what this is. These are from the Halloween Familiars pack, or Bolzobanian Familiars pack. I can't remember what one called it, but they're available on the website right now until the end of the month. And then so are some of the other Bolzobanians that have not been converted to plastic. So these are metal figures, and they are not available all the time. So if you think they're awesome, you need to go place an order. And if you place an order for $20 or more of them, you will also get that graveyard arch that I showed earlier. Which I guess I should have put my arch together and taken a picture of the Ghost Bride on there. And then posted it, #rebuild. But alas, I did not. I should have placed a bunch of orders, and then we could test dry brushes on graveyard arches next week. But instead, we will test them on, I think it's the Wall of Stone from Bones 5. I think I snagged a bunch of those. And I have enough to test my 6. I think it's 6 dry brushes that I have, or 6 kinds of brushes that I have that you can use for dry brushing. And I'll probably make the nose like a little pink nose, so it helps the face stand out, and also because that's cute. Granted, I don't 100% know off the top of my head if black cats have pink noses. Although I've had a number of cats in my life, I have not had a black cat. Right now we have a kind of calico gray tabby and a big fat orange cat. I think that's an official breed, is big fat orange cat. Everyone I talk to that has an orange cat, well, not everyone, but I have a lot of Facebook friends, and like all the orange cats seem to tend to be a little chubby and also weird and willful. So I think there's just some kind of orange cat gene link thing that I was not informed about before I decided to become the owner of an orange cat. Well, actually, I didn't decide to become the owner of an orange cat. There was a skinny little kitten wandering around our neighborhood being sad and pathetic. And eventually we decided that he must not actually have a home. And we played kitten chicken with our neighbors for a couple of days, and we lost, and now we have an orange cat. Kitten chicken is when you're trying to not be the one that has to adopt the cat. Because they had a cat that died. So we're like, well, isn't it your turn for a cat? But instead we ended up with 3 cats instead. Now we only have 2. Yes, fat orange chonkers. Yes. He's a chonker. I saw some meme the other day about, how indignant fat cats look when you pick them up, because it's like, how did they pick me up when I'm so large? And that's exactly, he's like that. And I almost feel like he's done it because I have a bad back, so now I can't pick him up and love on him because he hates snuggles and stuff. He'll sit on us, and he likes doing that, and he loves head pets, but he doesn't like, snuggly snuggles. So I'm pretty sure he was, well, I really think he was eating too much because he was a little skinny street cat for a while. He's a very adept hunter, though. He caught his second chipmunk yesterday. He goes out, but on a leash. So he's on a leash when he's catching. When I tell you stories about when he's catching things, either he's in our basement or he's on a leash. And now we don't want him to catch chipmunks. It's like, it's one thing when he's killing moles and voles and various rodents that reproduce pretty well. But we don't have a lot of chipmunks. We don't see any reason that he needs to eat chipmunks since he's fat and he has plenty of food in here. But getting him to drop the chipmunk is a different story because he doesn't agree with our assessment of how much he needs a chipmunk. So the first time my husband turned on the hose and just the sound of the water was enough to bother him. But the second time we kind of had to flick him with a little bit of water before he would drop the chipmunk. So he's a deadly hunter. He could feed himself if we didn't, but he seems to prefer the stuff that we give him. Then the other day my husband went down to clean up the basement a little. And I was just joking around. I'm like, oh, Corbin, you should go down with him and make sure there aren't any mice. And then an hour later I found a decapitated mouse in his food bowl. So it's like, well, okay, good job. Thanks for following instructions. That one time. Typically he's not keen on following instructions. Is chipmunk a not rodent? Well, I guess it's a rodent, but it's not a rodent that wants to come in my house and cause problems. It's more of a wildlife rodent, so I feel like it can continue to have a wildlife. Although at this point, I'm trying to figure out if it's the same rodent, like the same chipmunk, and then that's just a stupid chipmunk. If it hasn't figured out that it shouldn't be wandering around inside the yard with the crazy cat. Or if it's a new chipmunk that didn't get the memo. Where are we? Yep, it's actually just about time to stop, so I'll show you where I ended up. I didn't quite get done, and I wasn't sure that I would, but because, it's funny that I was able to finish this one in one stream, but working with a monochromatic color scheme really does make it easier to paint quickly. And I had cheated and put all the base coats on this one before the stream started as well, so that helped. Well, let's gotta keep those bats in the middle so they can show up. But I got further further than I might have otherwise. So, and the pumpkin and the owl are pretty much done. And the bats, it is a little slower to pick out all the details on every little bat. So I decided to just paint one bat and then let you guys watch me paint other things. But yes, I should finish these up so that they are ready to be Halloween decorations next year. These are the kind of things, I like painting these kind of, like, I'm not just trying to sell stuff for Reaper. When they first asked me to paint these figures, I was a little nervous about it. The cartoony style ones, like this one in particular. I didn't actually paint these familiars originally. That Ann Forster painted the first set of those that's up on the website. Which is the other reason I thought it'd be fun to paint on stream today, because I didn't get to paint those before. So I was nervous about it, and but once I started painting them, it was just a ton of fun. It was a really nice break from like fiddlier, tiny things that we often paint. But they're also nice as gifts. Like if you were here when I was doing the slideshow, there's maybe I have the one that's kind of, there's Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. And they hold hands. Like, regular people know what these are. Your aunt and your father-in-law and stuff. They know what these characters are. They're big enough to see if you paint them and put them on a little base and it's on a mantelpiece or something. So they're also great gifts. They're fun, and they're the kind of things that are great gifts. But anyway, I will stop trying to sell things for Reaper. No, genuine, I do like these guys. I had fun getting to paint her again. I think there's a calendar that shows up now when there isn't something going on, but I will very briefly run through the show things that you can enjoy on the Reaper channel the rest of this week. So from every Monday to Friday at 11:30, all times are in Central, you can watch Ann Forster paint cool things. That's the person I mentioned. If you go look on the website for these guys, you'll see her paint jobs on those. Then on Tuesdays, the Crow's Nest is at 5 p.m. Michael Proctor paints, but he and the sculptor Jason Wiebe also talk to a guest, usually someone who's involved in miniature making in some way. No, I don't want you. You don't need to look at my cheat paper. Wednesdays is Miniatures Den with the Italian painter Luca at 2 p.m. Thursdays is the Crafty Creative with Josh Foreman at 2 p.m. and he does like sculpting and terrain construction, and just creative is the term. He does all kinds of creative stuff, and he's crafty with it. Reaper Live is at 6 p.m. If you like prizes, that's the show to go to. But that's also the place to go to for news on upcoming Reaper miniatures and promotions and stuff like that. Friday is Reaperland at 3 p.m., which has fun community content. And every other Friday, including this upcoming Friday, is Reaper Errant, where myself and 5 other of the Reaper painters and sculptors playing a D&D game. This is going to be a Halloween-themed one, and we have been promised that it will be suitably thematic. So I'm looking forward to that. Well, I always look forward to that because I enjoy playing with my friends, and we love that some of you are willing to come and listen to us be weird and inane. But thank you very much for watching. I'm pretty sure that Quindy's going to be able to find something fun for you to watch in a raid now. And I hope you enjoyed the day. Thanks, Quindy. Hopefully I'll stop having a headache by next week at least. The cough thing, that's just a thing. But I'll be using. So I'm going to switch over to my goodbye screen while Quindy gets the raid going. I'll see you next week. Dry brushing. Be there.